And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, October 18th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit the super chat button in the chat to help create a super chat of any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. I will acknowledge it, and it just makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So, we're going to start off the show. We're going to recap. We're going to recap last night's game between the Saints and the Broncos. In the second part of the show, we'll get into the Super Bowl rematch between the Chiefs and the 49ers. Then we'll talk about the other big game in the NFC North between the Lions and the undefeated Vikings. Then in the fourth part of the show, we'll talk about the matchup between C.J. Stroud and Jordan Love. And then in the final part of the show, we'll kind of just go around the league, both in college and in the NFL, and just look at the rest of the matchups for this weekend. So, with that being said, let's get into the first topic, which is talking about last night's game between the Broncos and the Saints. So, I thought this game was going to be low scoring, somewhat competitive, but I did have the Broncos winning, and the Broncos pretty much dominated this game from start to finish. This was Sean Payton's return to New Orleans for the first time. The Saints also honored Drew Brees at halftime, so it was good for Saints fans to reminisce on the good times with those two guys. And, because the Saints team that is currently playing right now is not getting it done. And it's funny how early on in the season, the Saints, they put up 40 points in back-to-back weeks. And, you thought like, oh, okay, maybe they got something going. But that was not the case. They're not a good football team. And part of that, and Dennis Allen said it after the game, that, they're dealing with a lot of injuries, which I get it. They're missing their top two wideouts. Derek Carr is hurt. They're missing guys on defense, on the offensive line. So, yeah, I mean, injuries are going to happen. And, it's really affecting the Saints. But even if the Saints were healthy, they probably, they probably would have a better record than they do right now. I mean, maybe they win last night. Then again, I don't really know, because I did say, with Sean Payton coaching on the other side, he knows the organization inside and out. I think the Broncos, the way they've been playing, the defense has been playing well. I think they probably still win against a healthy Saints team, because also I just don't trust Dennis Allen as a head coach, and I think he is definitely going to be on his way out at the end of the season, and maybe even before that. So, but yeah, I mean, the Saints, after that hot start, they've kind of reverted back to how they've been, which is not a very good football team. But I will say, this is the first time really that I got to sit down and watch Bo Nix, and I like what I saw last night. Right now the Broncos are a team on offense that doesn't have a lot of talent, but I mean, they do have some good players on offense. Not like they don't have anything, but I did like what I saw from Bo Nix, and he's very athletic. He can move around in the pocket. He can scramble if he has to. If you get this guy, some more weapons, I mean, I think he could be a pretty good quarterback. But that's just me. I mean, I know the Saints defense is pretty bad, but I definitely see something there with Bo Nix. And he was spreading the ball around a lot. last night. And, the Broncos, once they really took control of this game, they let the running game handle it. Javonte Williams had a very good game last night. McLaughlin almost broke a big run for a touchdown, but was tackled. They did what they were supposed to do, and they played good defense. They got a pick six off of Spencer Rattler, who wasn't very good, but then again, the Saints are shorthanded. So, but the Broncos right now are 4-3 on the season. Bo Nix went 16 to 26 for 164 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. The Broncos ran the ball for 225 yards. Javonte Williams had 88 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Bo Nix had 75 yards on the ground, had a 32-yard run at one point during the game. McLaughlin, 35 yards on the ground. Andrick Estime, their rookie running back, 29 yards on the ground. So, the Broncos, they really relied upon the running game last night. And Troy Franklin was the leading receiver last night for the Broncos, 5 receptions for 50 yards. Estime did have a fumble late, so that was the only positive from the Saints defense, is they were able to at least create a turnover. Broncos defense, 6 sacks on the night last night, and the pick 6. And that was by Cody Barton. He returned that. And then for Spencer Rattler, he went 25 of 35 for 172 yards. And the backup quarterback, the other quarterback, the third stringer, Jake Hayner, he had a touchdown in this game. He went 3 for 4 for 38 yards. So we'll see who ends up being the starter next week. Unless they just wanted Rattler, just take him out of the game when it got out of hand. The Saints really didn't. They had 97 yards on the ground. Kendre Miller, he had 36 yards on the ground. Spencer Rattler had 34. Javonte Williams, 17. Alvin Kamara had 10. Cedric Wilson caught the only touchdown in this game by the Saints. So he had 6 receptions for 57 yards. Mason Tipton, he had 6 for 45. Foster Moreau, 2 for 38. But yeah, Spencer Rattler, 2 fumbles in this game. And for the Saints defense, they did not get to Bo Nix once. No sacks in the game. But yeah, to kind of go through the game summary. So both teams exchanged punts to start off the game. Will Lutz had a big day too. He got the Broncos on the board with a 46-yard field goal to make it 3-0. Saints then fumbled. Broncos turned that into a field goal. Will Lutz from 32 yards out. Then in the second quarter, the Saints punted. Broncos turned that into a touchdown drive. Bo Nix connected with Troy Franklin for 30 yards. And then eventually they got down to the 8, and Javonte Williams from 8 yards out scored a touchdown to make it 13-0. Then the Saints, they put together a field goal drive, and Groupie kicked a 35-yard field goal. And then the Broncos answered with a field goal drive of their own. Lutz kicked a 52-yarder right before the end of the first half. A lot of field goals, like I said, by Lutz. Third quarter, Saints opened up with punting the football. Like I said, Javonte Williams had a 21-yard run. That if he doesn't get tackled, he's scoring. But eventually, yeah, they got down to the Saints 20. Will Lutz another field goal, so I made it 19-3. Saints punted, and then Javonte Williams from 5 yards out later in the drive scored a touchdown to make it 26-3. More punts. The Broncos fumbled, like I said, but then Rattler got sacked. Actually, so it was a fumble, but Barton caught it off the rebound, and he scored from 52 yards out. And that made it 33-3. And then the Saints put together a touchdown drive, like I said. And that was to Cedric Wilson. And that was it, 33-10. So Will Lutz, he went on the night, he went 4 for 4 on field goals. The longest one he made was a 52-yarder. Broncos had the ball for over 33 minutes, 22 first downs. Total yards of offense, that's what I wanted to go to, if I can find it. So yeah, total yards, Broncos almost had 400 yards of total offense to the Saints, 271. Saints actually ran more plays, 66-61. But yeah, this was all Broncos, and they're a weird team, but they're playing good defense. They ran the ball a little bit better last night. Bo Nix is doing what he's supposed to do. You got to like the direction that this team is heading in the long term. Because, like I said, if they could maybe surround Bo Nix with more talent, like I said, maybe you got something. Because I know there was a lot of people that maybe didn't have Bo Nix as a first-round pick. And again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I was an expert on all these quarterbacks. The ones that were taken in the top 3, I'm like, okay, these guys are supposed to be really good. And, the number 1 and the number 2 overall pick, they're going to be going up against each other next week. A Nance Romo vehicle. But then, Michael Penix and Bo Nix, those guys, J.J. McCarthy getting taken after that. We got to see. J.J. McCarthy out for the year. Of course, Michael Penix is sitting behind Kirk Cousins. Drake May, we saw him against the Texans last week, and, it was a mixed bag, but you see the talent. The Patriots got to surround him with more talent. And, with Bo Nix, the Broncos are 4-3, and, we'll see where, excuse me again, we'll see where the season eventually ends up, but, there's definitely things to like about Bo Nix. I really didn't expect the Broncos to win a lot of games this year. I think I had them at like 5 wins. They're already at 4. So I think they're definitely going to be over 5 wins by the end of the year. So if their defense continues to play well and if they can run the football, Bo Nix, plays turnover-free football. Because last week against the Chargers, first half they weren't great. Second half the offense kind of woke up a little bit. So, and last night they kind of were able to do whatever they wanted against the Saints defense. The Saints defense has not been great these last couple of weeks. Between this game and in Tampa, or against Tampa, the Buccaneers putting up 51 points. So, that hot start that the Saints had, it's a distant memory now, and they are not a good football team, and the South is going to come down to the Bucs and the Falcons. That's what it looks like at this current moment. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about this game. What were your takeaways from it? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about the Super Bowl rematch between the Chiefs and the 49ers. We'll get into that when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.